Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Eastlink TV. I am Sean McKenna. This is Rimshots with Sean. I have the fabulous Leona Burkey here with me today. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Sean. I'm doing great. How are you? I put on my favorite bar shirt for you.
Well, there you go. It's all looking good. It's all looking good. Last time I saw you was at the wildfire benefit, which was a great success. You were having some fun up there.
Oh yeah. Wasn't that a great thing?
Good day.
The lineup was astonishing. The money raised, the whole team, it was awesome.
Yeah, it's nice when a group of people can come together for that. It makes your heart feel good.
It sure does.
So, young lady, you've had a lot on the go. Why don't we start with what you've been up to? I know that you've had a couple songs on the radio. You've been doing some recording. You've been doing some shows. Made a couple trips to Cape Breton. So let's just start with what have you had on the go the last little bit?
Yeah, it's been pretty busy. Um, when you get to be a certain age, this might not apply to guys as much, but people tell you things like, "Oh, it's so nice that you're still out playing," And I'm like, I never stopped.
Yeah.
Or what? Anyway, so that's fine. But no, things have been good. I put out a full length record very early in 23. Like, we did a physical release, a bunch of shows in very late fall, and then it was out on all the digital platforms and stuff, of course, and it's called Ground Rush. So that's my third full length, and it's I am like fully into like loving a second act in on the songwriter side of the business, which is awesome. I've always been an entertainer, pretty flexible, performer, singer, guitarist. Songwriting is a huge passion, but it's been a very careful, slow burn.
Well,
So it's nice to kind of, I'm like, dang, it's getting busy. Like, so the record, lots of great traction, couple of feature tracks out, recruited a little team, made some feature music videos, and my mom life is changing a lot these last couple of years as my kids are getting a bit older. So I have a little more time to devote to the trade, and it's paying off. It's wonderful.
yeah, and I mean, I can relate. I was somebody that got into the business for a period of time and got back in, and when you have kids, it's sometimes tough because you have to balance the whole
Totally.
thing, and they have to get used to the fact that their friends might have parents that are doctors and lawyers, and their parents going out to play a bar or a festival or whatever. It's sometimes a little bit strange if they don't understand what the deal is.
Exactly. Yeah, and mine have been certainly along for the ride, even when they were young. Um, I would kind of hand pick a few gigs here and there just to make sure I, keep my stick on the ice and, keep the keep things flowing. And they've been to golf resorts and sleepaways, from all over the Maritimes with me, even when they were young. So they do get it, and they can coil up a patch cord it like no one's business.
Well, that's important. And you get to that wonderful time. I'm there with my daughter where she'll send me a text. Are you playing this bar tonight? Can you put me on the guest list? And it's like, here we
Woo!
are. We've got to that point, right?
Yeah.
Couple minutes back there, you mentioned something you were talking about. I don't know if it's different for men than women, and you talked about people. Oh, you're still playing. What's the climb like around here? I guess for the female chanteur, if you will, because to me, as a guy who's not a woman, but it seems like the environment's never been, I guess, as welcoming. Years ago, maybe not so much, but it just seems like it's very open and very welcoming right now. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. It is. You know what I'm noticing that is amazing to me that I love so much is in my younger years, I kind of, and I'm sure we'll get into the roots of it all, but I grew up watching people kind of just hit a room, Cape Breton troubadour style. I thought that's how you did it. I just plowed on. I was always a singer, but I had a long stint, about a decade in Western Canada. And I used to go, and this would have been in the late 90s and through the aughts. And I'd go, I would think nothing of getting in my car and taking a booking at a huge bar, like in Grand Prairie or Fort McMurray. And I would be by myself and just be like, let's go and folk rock the heck out of the room. And I only realized a few years into it, that there were no other women doing that.
Yeah.
And it was, it was a little off. And I was in many situations where it may have not necessarily been the safest choice to be a soloist and just take on big rooms and say yes to everything and have a great time. And that was more in the entertainer space. And also when venues were like fuller, so
Yep.
it was a really nice time. But what I'm noticing, especially post COVID, and I love seeing it, is I think there will always be good people trying to achieve balance and parity and all of that. And there's still a big disparity, but I think it's just because, women's lives tend to be a little more complex on the responsibility side. And we also have the child thing. If you decide to be a mom, and of course it changes your music career and your trajectory. But I find what I love seeing now, though, is seasoned artists like, I just heard a quote the other day from Jill Barber, who COVID forced her to be home, like a lot of these touring moms, and kind of re-examine that whole dichotomy and talk it, and I love hearing artists talk about that stuff. That's the big change I see. I think the welcoming, the signs that the industry is becoming truly more welcoming is that these conversations are being had, right? Like Jen Grant is talking about having to drag her kids around. Or just the other day, I can't wait to see her. I'm a big Feist fan, like Leslie Feist. I think she's a national treasure, and she's coming to Jazz Fest. So there's a lot of media, and I just heard her on Q or CBC or something. And what a wonderful thing to, listen to somebody that you truly admire and, a role model, let's say musically, and an influence, take a moment to talk about parenting, completely incinerating her as a person. And that her last record that she's touring now explores that whole concept. And I'm kind of like, that's really nice. Because 15 years ago, I found myself doing a lot of pretending, never mentioning that I had, a nursing baby at the time, or a couple kids at home, or that my husband's a rotational worker in my life's case. Now it seems like we're freer to be able to talk about that kind of chaos. And it also is a great strengthener of your creative voice, right? Like if you have a complicated life, you're going to have a lot of impressions, you're going to have a lot of material to work with. So I love that welcoming. So I think your statement is fair. And I think the evidence is in the conversations that are being had.
Well, right on. You know what? We're going to take a little break. We're going to pay some bills because we got to do that on TV, not so much on the podcast.
Yeah, we do. It's not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
a chat fest. We got
Absolutely.
to pay
We're here on
bills.
Eastlink TV, and we'll be back with Leona Burkey after this. Well, kids, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean. I am Sean. I'm here with Leona Burkey. And so I guess you know what? You may not know this. I'm a fellow Cape Bretoner. Although from Sydney, pretty much grew up in Dartmouth.
Woo!
Tell the viewers about because I see all the time when you're hitting that welcome to Cape Breton sign on the bridge and all that.
Oh
Um,
man.
just give everybody a little nickel tour on your background.
For sure. Hey, crossing that causeway never gets old. Never gets old.
Yep.
I grew up in a tiny little seaside fishing village. It looks like a postcard. It's called Lordways. It's like got 500 citizens.
Uh-huh.
It's more of a stretch of coastline than anything else. Not far from Sydney, but an hour south, in the southeast corner of the island in Richmond County. But we were thinking, but we did a concert around Mother's Day in my home village, and we kind of gathered up some old friends, and it was a bit of a reunion. And I was just thinking about this very thing, like for such a tiny place, we were immersed completely in music all the time. Like there was a huge school choir, and there was productions, and even more so than say my kids are exposed to now in a tiny village. Like it was just really curious. Like our gym teacher was John Kennedy, who was a lead guitarist in a rock band, and that's what he did. So, we knew him for that. My own beginnings were, taking my first and only guitar lessons with Donnie Webb, who's like a well-known guy in Nova Scotia, and has been playing, kind of the rock and roll and rock and country scene for decades. And he comes from a family of like 10 siblings, and they all played. Like we really had so much exposure to music, and it wasn't just sort of traditional music. We had a lot of rock and roll, a lot of country, a lot of blues in this tiny little county. And it just never felt strange to be really interested in music, and we always felt supported. Like, I remember going to variety concerts with hundreds of people in the audience, and I was just a 9-year-old kid, just figuring out. Someone told me I could sing really good, so I'm like, okay, let's do this. And it set a tone for music being like a way of life. Like if you're a player, you're a player. Like if you go to the shed on some random weekend in Cape Breton for a party, like if you're a player, well, you bring your guitar and you're part of the singing and the tunes, and when that is inbred in you when you're not even a teenager yet, it gives you a really long time to grow, because we all
Um,
started early,
for sure.
big and a good solid musical legacy in that little part of the island too.
I played Codstock last year, which it had been a while since I
Yes.
played Cape Breton. What a hoot! But I've also played over Newfoundland, so I've done multiple tours in Newfoundland. And as you go across the island, you get to St. John's, where you think that it's a little bit like Cape Breton. However, I don't know if you've ever played there before. It's if you're good, they clap wildly because they have a ton of good musicians. If they don't like you, you know it in a heartbeat.
In
Um,
1 minute.
yeah, it can be uncomfortable. I've seen, so thankfully it's never happened to me, but I've seen it with other people. Cape Breton's never really had that. I mean, I've always found that good, bad, whatever, they always tend to cheer people on and rally. Have you found that growing up?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we always love where we come from, but the community kind of supportive spirit in Cape Breton is really pretty extraordinary. It really is. And to this day, it's the same with me. Like if I'm in the city, and any opportunity I get to go home to the island and support something that's happening, or bring Cape Breton musicians off island to something I'm doing, like we're obsessed. We just love it all. Yeah, it's great.
That is the one part, and I even find like I've been spending a lot of time in Dartmouth doing shows, and I live in Dartmouth, but Halifax, I've been in that scene since I moved back from Toronto in 2000, and really it hasn't changed a whole lot in that it's fun, but it's uber competitive and sometimes not necessarily super welcoming. So you're playing and it's like, oh yeah, hey, come out. And during the shows, there's just camaraderie. But when things aren't kind of together and playing, you just always feel like it's a competition. And obviously the good ones bubble up and the ones that shouldn't be there kind of go by the wayside. But out of everywhere in the province or Atlantic Canada, besides Cape Breton, is there a place that you like to play the best, that you know, best people, best, response, that type of thing?
Yeah, oh, that's a great question. There, I really I've had some great shows in Fredericton. Fredericton's a great music town.
If I had to move somewhere besides Halifax, that's where it would be. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
interestingly so,
Yeah.
and I think their Harvest Festival has really kind of opened the town's eyes to like how great it is to be known as a music town, and now they have a few strong festies, and it's really good. So yeah, I've had some really really nice times playing in New Brunswick, Fredericton in particular, and I play a lot of shows in Cape Breton. I do. So if one huge show for us this year was Sydney, because Sydney can be a tough town. And we
Yes.
did, yeah, almost a little bit like you were describing in St. John's, like, because it's a bigger town, there's a lot of music, you better be good, kind of
Yep.
thing. So, but yeah, we did an inaugural show, in a big bar room called Daniel's, and that was, yeah. So I've had some really nice shows in Sydney, and I am hoping to cut into the other island of PEI this fall with some pals over there. But I am quite regional. So, when I moved home from Western Canada in 2009. So I had a few slow years doing little baby stuff. And then I kind of debuted the songwriting kind of catalog started to come out. That would have started in 2013. So since then, I've just, I've been sorry. Shoot.
Oh, see ya.
That's not what I want. You can cut that out. We can go back or
I
something.
don't even worry about it. It's all good.
Okay, all good. This is my
Live
mother.
TV.
That's my mother calling
Uh-oh.
me from
Well, I
Cape
tell you
Breton
what, if
right now.
if we could take a break, we can pay some bills, and you can shoot her a text. How about we do that
Let's do that so she doesn't call again.
after this, folks? Well, folks, this is flying by. Sean here with Rimshots with Sean with my buddy Leona Burkey, and so you had mentioned. So I know you did some recording with a couple friends of mine. So you did some work with Joe Breen in the past, who's a very good friend of mine. Hi, Mom. When you're watching this,
Yeah, Mom is calling. Sorry, Mom.
it's all good.
Gotta go to voice.
You work
Mom.
with another good friend of mine, Charles Austin,
If I
who
send you to voicemail once,
that's all right.
don't
That's
call
all
me
right.
back. Okay.
You work with Charles Austin. I think that your most recent recording was with Charles. Is that correct?
My last two recordings were with Charles. So I have three full lengths. My first one I worked on in 2015 in not far from Sydney in Point Coney at Lake Wind Sound. But the commute was getting a little crazy and my kids were in school, so I
Yeah.
had to adapt. But I was looking for a special something, and I found it in Charles Austin's studio, his team, and everyone involved,
Uh,
my producer, what have you. So I did two back-to-back full lengths with him, and I'm not sure if I'll ever go anywhere else.
Charles is we did.
That's how great it was.
He was. We did. I did actually two recordings there that made it out into the consciousness there. But we did Michelle Ryder's tune there. I love it, man. Charles is he's
Sounds
amazing.
really
I love
good,
working
man.
with him.
Yeah.
Right, and he's so chill. In the new studio now, the old one that he had over by St. Mary's Basilica was cool, and then he moved to the new spot. The new spot's got this vibe, which is pretty cool. It's a little smaller, but it's got this great vibe to it.
I love the new space. I love it. Yep. I hope they get to stay there for a while. I mean, it's nice to kind of settle in and start working with your people. And they're also becoming more popular as the word gets out, right?
Absolutely.
So, we have we have some shiny studios in the city that are pretty gorgeous and, they're well known and, they have a big draw. But those who know what happens at Ocean Floor, if you're going for something in particular,
No
that's where you
question.
go.
And
Yeah.
Ocean Floor with Charles, he's a great guy to work with. So the rest of this last segment, and I can't believe we're almost done here, but it's been a lot of fun. Before we started recording, I had you and I were talking, and you have quite a bit going on over the next bit. So why don't you tell the viewers, what your summer's going to look like? Because it's hard to believe we just started summer
I
last week.
know it's rolling in. So, what I love about what I do is I'm old, so I do what I want, dear reviewers. So, my summer schedule is whack. Like, I have a residency called Maritime Monday here in the city where you can catch me singing like Canadiana classics and maritime classics, and it's very much that style of pub show. I have a couple of my own productions that are coming up. So I started a new concert series called Women Folk, and it's really, really brand new. And what it is I find that there's a lot missing from the middle of the industry. So, if you're doing really well and you're exporting, you're touring a lot, there seems to be a lot of support. If you're starting out and really developing, well, that's a different kind of support. But for a whole bunch of folks in the middle, I really like putting together shows, getting a little bit of funding beforehand,
Yep.
making sure the artists get paid well, and that they have a safe space and it's a hosted show. So everything is taken care of. And that, it works really well. So I've had 3 of these women folk shows. So I'm really excited about Women Folk 3, which will be the season opener on Waverly Green, which is just between kind of Dartmouth and the airport. It's a beautiful outdoor space, and we're bringing in our women folk lineup is Carmen Townsend from Cape Breton, and she has a rock and roll heart that just lights everyone on fire. She's wonderful. If you've never heard of her, check her out. She is amazing. And a local, her name is Laura Merriman, and Laura has some solid recordings out, and she's playing out lots again. But the 3 of us are going to tackle the Waverly Green season opener, which is an amazing Sunday evening show on July 23rd. And then I have couple of weird rock festivals, one in my hometown, and a big weekend in Cape Breton where I go to the Folk and Frolic in Iona. And that sounds like a frolicking good time, but it's a deadly space. So anybody that gets to play Iona in the Iona Heights Inn, it's just one of those Cape Breton charms that we truly love. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm planning a hometown show late summer with a few people, and I'm forgetting a bunch of stuff, but it's easy to find me around. My last name is Burkey, like turkey, and it's like a really weird spelling of an old French name. So if you Google Leona Burkey, I'm literally the only one in the world.
I was
So
almost I
that
was
you can
almost going to
find
say
everything.
I was almost going to say it's like orange. Nothing rhymes with orange, but something does,
Nothing.
right? But something does rhyme with Berkey, so that's good to
Yeah,
know.
turkey, and
That's
it's used a lot. But yeah, it's so easy to find. I got lots of material out there. I love entertaining folks and having musical conversations, of mutual appreciation. So, and I'm looking forward to playing with you guys in
yes,
Dartmouth in
yes.
September.
Oh, yes. That's my birthday show. That's my birthday show,
I
so that'll
know.
be
I
fun.
had to choose between Michelle's birthday and your birthday. That's an impossible decision.
Hers is more jammy. Mine's more we'll call it slam the suds back. But anyway, you mentioned something, and I do want to say that I'm glad that you brought it up because you were talking about, you know we were talking about playing in front of people and how it can be difficult. And I've kind of always operated by I play for myself, right? So I go up there. You like what I do, great. If you don't, I'm fine with that too, because I know kind of where my space is. Um, so thank you for doing that because there's an awful lot of women I think that sometimes, and I know a couple that I've talked to that they're nervous to get up because they think they're going to be judged. And let's face it, a dude wearing tight jeans with his gut hanging out doesn't get judged as much as a lady that's got a hair out of place. That's just the way it is in this industry, right?
Yep.
So we got about 30 seconds. You said Berkey, but where am I for folks going to find you? Where are they going to get your
You
music?
Yeah, you can find me on all the biggies, guys, like Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube. I've got all this stuff. I'm a little, I'm of a certain age that handling all that stuff feels like a mountain sometimes, but it's coming together. So you can find me on all the platforms, and I got a YouTube channel and all the social media platforms, and I stay pretty current. So it's easy to find me on Bands in Town, and all the things where you find your local music, and where you feed your listening habits. It's very easy to find me.
Awesome. Leona Burkey, thanks for being on Rimshots with Sean right here in
I
Eastlink
love
Television.
it, Sean.
We'll see you next week, folks.
Rimshots.